Well, good day everyone. It is Saturday the 12th of February 2022, 26 degrees Celsius, 78 degrees Fahrenheit, and today we find ourselves in the north suburb of Lutwyche. But our main walk today is going to be on a murder mystery case I spoke about in my last video, which I think was December last year. It's been a while. Well, we might be lucky and get these ones. 17 seconds. We're going to make our way up to Wilston / the Grange. And then on the way back I'll talk a little bit more about Lutwyche and the Grange. First of all, I just want to bend your ear for a minute. It's been 12 months to the day almost I started this channel, and hasn't been going as well as I expected, and I follow quite a few other YouTubers and I subscribe to their channels, and one of them said something the other day that pricked my ears, and he mentioned about the likes and how influential they are, and of course the subscriptions. Now I must admit, when I first started watching YouTube, I saw subscription and I immediately think, well, it's going to cost me money. Well, it doesn't. You just have to make an account, and then you can like and comment on various YouTubers. And I really think they should change that to follow, maybe, instead of subscribe. It's huge. You know, if you're on Facebook and you're, sorry if it's a bit noisy here at the moment, hope you can hear me. But you know, if you're on Facebook and you make a post, or you make a comment, you get a bunch of likes, and you know, that's good. But in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't mean anything. But on YouTube, it's huge. What that does is tickles the algorithms and lets YouTube know that I'm doing a good job, and increases their chances of recommending my content to others, and that's how it gets out there, and that's how it grows. So I mean, I've got videos that have had 1,200 views, which may not seem like to others, but it's huge to me. 400, 600 views, and only 60 people or 20 people like it. Now I find it hard to believe that after 1,200 views only 60 people liked it. So if you could just take the nanoseconds and give that little thumbs up if you like the video, of course. If you don't, well, Okay? But you'd be helping my channel grow. I need 1,000 subscribers before I can live stream. And that'll be fun. I'll be able to answer your questions and talk to you in real time. I won't be doing all of them like that. Yeah, it'd be fun to do from time to time. I'm nowhere near that at the moment. So yeah, you could help me out and support, and I really do appreciate the support that I do get. Got a couple of new subscribers recently. It's always cool to see that. Knows I'm doing something right. Yeah, anyway, that's my little rant. My bomb shelter over there. A lot of them are turned into bus stops and shelters. There's quite a few through the valley in Spring Hill. Anyway, the main purpose of this walk today, we'll get started, and I have to admit I ummed and ahed about doing this. Put myself under a bit of pressure, mostly because I wanted to get it right. I've got to be mindful and respectful that there's still maybe family members living. Of course, be respectful to the victim herself. So I've done a bit of research, and a lot of it is my own knowledge I've picked up over the years. I've read a book on the subject, seen a few interviews, and I promised to do this one in the Christmas lights walk. So I want to make my next video. But yeah, I've been procrastinating a bit on it. So I certainly hope I do it justice. We're just arriving at our first part of this case. The Wilston Grange murders occurred on the night of September the 19th, 1952, and many refer to it as the night that Brisbane lost its innocence. Back in those days, people would leave their doors unlocked and go to the shops and leave the keys in the car. It was very innocent times. And on the morning of September 20th, 1952, it's noisy here. A young woman's body was found in the front yard of a house in Carberry Street. And it was the body of 22-year-old Betty Shanks. And Betty was well liked. She was respected at her workplace by her superiors and her colleagues, being a nice, decent, hard-working girl with lots of drive She had a very important job. She worked for the federal government in Adelaide Street. Not really sure what she did there, but for a woman to have a career in those days, it would have been hard. But she was well accepted and well respected in the field for such a young girl. Now on Friday night she would attend a lecture in Ann Street in the city, and that was to further her career. And I think it started about 5:30 p.m. and would finish up around 8:45 p.m. and her lecturer would often drive students home or drop them off on his way home. He lived at Chermside, which is just a few kilometres behind us. And if they lived a little bit out of his way, well, he would drop them at the nearest tram stop. I suppose he didn't want them hanging around town late at night. So he would drive them back out into the suburbs. And of course there were trams running in those days. Along here, along Lockwich Road, all the way to Chermside. And this is the actual tram stop that she was dropped off at, and now it's a bus stop, I think. Can't see a bus stop sign. Yeah, we dropped her off here around this location on that fateful night, and she had to wait 15-20 minutes or so for a tram to arrive. When she got on the tram, the conductor actually made a remark that, you know, he thought she was somebody else, and she sort of laughed that off, and she goes, "No, that's alright, I get that a lot." So keep that bit of information in the front of your mind, so that's important. And Betty would catch the tram to Thomas Street, and she'd take the short walk down to her home in Carberry Street, which she shared with her parents and her younger sister. Now 3 months prior to the murder, she went oh, hang on. She went on a ticket with golden casket tickets, like the lottery in those days, with her parents, and they won. And they won £15,000. That's huge. And considering a lot of his houses you're looking at now would have been a couple of £1,000. That's massive in today's money. You'd be looking 200,000 plus. Now she could have bought her own house. In fact, her father paid the mortgage out. She could have bought a car. She could have bought several cars. But she kept up with her career, continued living at home, and then she got a phone call one afternoon, and it was overheard by her younger sister, and Betty was very agitated and angry and shouting down the phone that "No, I don't want to see you anymore, leave me alone," all this. And of course the sister never said anything, because, you know, I wanted eavesdropping on your sister's phone call. And Betty left soon after and went for a walk or whatever. Came back a couple of hours later. So that's something to think about too. And there's so many twists in there, so many scenarios. Anyway, when she got off the tram, she walked down Thomas Street. Now, I haven't been down there for a while myself, so I don't know what it looks like now. But then they had trees lining both sides, very thick. And of course the street lighting in the 50s wasn't the best, so it was quite dark. So the night in question, the tram driver and 5 other passengers saw or observed a man in a brown suit loitering around the tram terminus, and he wasn't getting on the tram or didn't meet anyone or anything like that. Brown suits in those days were quite common. Everyone had one. And another little piece of information which is very handy to know is that at the end of Days Road there's a doctor's surgery, and it's still there, a pharmacy at least, and there was a lady that worked there, and Monday, Wednesdays and Friday nights she would work back, normally till about 9:45 p.m. I don't know about this. Where does this go to? But this particular night she finished early. Yeah, it looks all overgrown there. I don't think I'm going to go that way. Go back down here and cross the road, I think. Not sure what this is. Yeah, so she left early. So she would have been home. She lived at Primrose Street, which is only a couple of streets away from her home. And so that would have put her in that area at that time, but of course she left earlier, so she would have been well and truly home. Now, the next morning, on the 20th of September, my neighbour walking by discovered the body in the front yard of the neighbour's house to Betty. Now, she had some pretty horrifying injuries. Some people may find this disturbing or a bit queasy, so you can mute if you like, and when I'm finished explaining the injuries, I'll give a little thumbs up in front of the screen so you know. How's that? So she was found with her blouse pulled up, breast exposed, underwear down, dress up to make it look, well, that's what they're thinking now, make it look like it was sexual assault, although the medical examiner at the time found no evidence of this. She had broken sternum, broken collarbone, broken arm, broken leg, broken fingers, broken hips, pelvis, Lots of cuts, bruises, lacerations. She had what appeared to be black shoe polish on her face and some pattern like squares and circles and diamond thing, you know. But she had a tooth, a molar, that was found 50 metres away from the scene and had been knocked out with such force it actually took a bit of a cheek with it. So yeah, some pretty horrific injuries, and for the first responders, the first detectives, it would have been quite a gruesome scene. They also found that she had marks around her neck, which is consistent with strangulation. Now they they interviewed all the people in the street, like door knocked, several days later, mind you, and many said they heard 2 screams and then a short scream, and one fellow who lived up the road, he actually went out to have a look, couldn't see anything, but he heard a motorcycle riding off, and he's a motorcycle enthusiast. Get down. And he said that it sounded like a BSA or JAP motorcycle to him, and that's what the police were riding at the time. So the scenario was put out there that perhaps she was hit by a motorcycle cop, and you know, he may be on his last warning if he messes up, and he tried to hide the fact that he hit her. By dumping a body in the neighbour's yard and then rearranging her clothing to make it look like sexual assault. Well, another witness said that they heard a motorbike coming back and then riding off again. So the scenario was put forward that he hit her, accidental, threw a body in the neighbour's yard to hide it, and then he's come back thinking, oh, maybe I should make it look like it was something else. So he's come back, rearranged her clothing, and then to his surprise she's still alive. So he's finished her off by strangling her. Possible scenario. Now the black shoe polish, well, all police wore shoes with black shoe polish, so did everybody else, but their saddlebags were also polished with black shoe polish, and a lot of them are quite ornate. May have had studs on them, the buckles would have been shiny, brass most likely back in those days, lots of sharp edges. So the chief medical examiner at the time, he actually concluded that it looks to him that she was hit by a vehicle, possibly a motorcycle. Now the circles and the square imprint and all that on her face could have just been part of the stud pattern. The buckles themselves So that was thrown around for a while, but not much came of that. Let's get by all this. Rush hour now. Thank you. Let me go. So I don't know what happened after the Chief Medical Examiner came to that conclusion, whether they followed up on that or not, but that sort of started to wane. And then the pharmacist popped up on the radar screen, and she would often leave, as I said, 9:45. But this night she left a bit earlier, so she missed all the action. Now remember what I said earlier, that Betty was often mistaken for somebody else. Now this pharmacist was going through a messy divorce, and her husband was quite nasty, and so the next scenario was thrown up that he's murdered her. But because she left earlier and Betty arrived at that time, maybe Betty was just in the wrong place at the wrong time, and he mistook her for his ex and murdered her, and realised, you know, well, it's not her, but well, I'm going to have to kill her anyway now, because, you know, she's a witness. But that's not all. The young pharmacy assistant, she was witness to a rape. I think it was up around Maroochydore. She was a prime witness. Now this person that was accused, he was in the army. He was stationed at Gallipoli Barracks in Ogwa, not far from here. And in those days they wore these spats that covered their boots, you know, very hard wearing leather. And this could have been consistent. Army boots too, of the black shoe polish, of her having her head stomped. I just remember I didn't do my thumbs up after the horrific details. Oh. But anyway, he was interviewed, so par of course, and he was cleared. He had an airtight alibi. Oh. And he was subsequently acquitted of the rape charges as well. So highly unlikely it was the soldier. Could have been the ex-husband, case of mistaken identity. And Betty mentioned she gets mistaken all the time, so it's possible. Now there was also a doctor that attended some lectures that Betty also attended, so they knew each other through that, but not very well. So of course he was interviewed too, along with everybody else that was there that night, you know, normal procedure. Nice. But it's a little bit funny because the night of the murder, he showed up at a mate's house at Stafford, and he seemed, you know, agitated, just, you know, not his normal self. He just rambled on a few things to his co-worker that he was visiting, and he lived at Ipswich as a doctor, so it was a long way for him to travel. But Stafford's just through there, it's not very far away. And I don't know, coincidentally or not, 2 days after the murder, he committed suicide. Now, was it a guilty conscience? You don't know. So just keep that in mind, because I'll come back to the doctor later on. Now I want to talk about the next suspect, and I think he's the culprit. And his name was Eric Starian, and he was a locksmith, and he did a lot of work for government bodies, police, courthouses, security organisations and so on. And he was also a decorated World War II veteran who was in the Air Force. So he was highly regarded and highly respected in the community. But he was a very abusive man to his family. He had a young daughter and a young son, and he would systematically abuse them and his wife. But of course, that's the way it is. A lot of these domestic violence people, they seem the nicest people. If you work with them, you know them. But, you know, when the doors are closed, all turns to crap. Now, he often would put his 2 children in his car, and they lived at Chermside, and he would drive them over to here, and he would tell them to stay in the car, go to sleep. And if they wouldn't do what they're told, well, you know, he would assault them. So they're very fearful of him. He would often park the car at Wilston Primary School and disappear for, you know, sometimes short time, sometimes lengthier. Now, I think it was 2 nights before the murder, they were same thing, dropped off car park near Wilston Primary School. Father left, wearing a brown suit, and sometime later the young girl woke up and she could hear a fight, people were arguing, and she looked out towards the front of the car, and his father's got this woman by the throat over the bonnet of the car, and she's telling him to get away, I don't want to see it, I want to see it. And she thinks today that that woman was Betty. The night of the murder, September 19th, again the father bundled the kids in his car and went to Wilston Primary School, parked up, and when he came back they said he was very agitated, very aggro, you know. His clothes were a little bit you know, tattered. He said may even had blood on them. She was too scared to say anything about what happened. about 3 o'clock in the morning. That would have been 20th of September. She's woken up to go to the toilet or get a drink or something, and she looked out the backyard, and here's her father standing there naked, burning clothing in the old incinerator. Bizarre behaviour at the best of times, but the next morning, so it would have been the 20th, he's ordered her to clean his shoes, the soles of his shoes. Now while she's doing this, she's digging out what she thought was sticks and a bit of mud and a bit of oil or whatever. But thinking about it later on, could have been bone tissue, you know, and tissue and grizzle and all this sort of thing out of his shoes. He's then told her to take them into a shoe repair shop in the valley and have them resoled. Now why would you do that? You're trying to hide something. Clean my shoes and make sure they're clean and then get them resoled. All very, very sus. Now, at one point, she even told the police that she thinks it was her daddy that hurt that nice woman. They chastised her, fobbed her off, saying you shouldn't be talking like that about your dad. He does a lot of nice work for us. Returned veteran. Decorated. He's a good man. So they just, yeah, threw her under the carpet. Anyway, in 1999, well, the proverbial hit the fan. She's contacted Courier Mail, supply newspaper in Queensland, and said that she thinks her father was responsible for the Betty Shanks matter, and they subsequently reopened the case. Just coming up to that pharmacy here, gone through many changes. Range place. That's where our pharmacist worked. And this is the tram stop. This is the tram terminus. Was, and this is the bus stop or tram stop back in those days, yeah, that she was dropped off at. It was around 9:40 p.m. She was actually wearing a watch that stopped at 9:47 p.m. and the doctor said it would take a lot of force to break that watch. So we have a pretty close idea to the time of death. Legend. Yeah, there used to be Commonwealth Bank there. Post office at the back still. And there was a real estate agent I used to pay my rent at when I lived around here. That building in the corner there's original, but there's still a super pharmacy. It's interesting. Anyway, so it's now still an open case. That's Thomas Street. This is the way she would have walked down. So I'm just wondering why more wasn't looked into with our mate Eric. Was it a cover-up? Were the police covering up the motorcycle cop, or this Eric Starian fellow, because he was held in such high regard in the community, and the locksmith work that he did to the city? Could it be that? Nothing was ever further investigated on him. Now, just getting back to the doctor in Ipswich who committed suicide, when this case reopened in 1999, they did DNA testing of his still living sons, and he was clear, because there's no DNA testing back in those days, of course. Why can't they do that of young Eric? Yeah, I know. So it looks like whoever did it got away with it. And this is the house of Betty Shanks. And she lived for a short 22 years of life. And this was the house where her body was found, in the front yard, around there, around that location. Yeah, look at that, would have been nice Queenslanders sitting right there. So yeah, it's a sad, needless, tragic murder. Now the pharmacist too, I should note, she lived at Primrose Street, which is just a couple of streets down that way. So she would have gone down a different street anyway. Whether that's pertinent or not, I don't know. Oop. Let me drop my camera there. Just trying to find my... Oh, there we go. I'll come back down here and get another better shot of this house. A few people around here. Someone sitting in this car, he is eyeballing me a bit. I don't know what's going on with that. I'll probably get a lot of people coming around here filming. But, I do want to take a moment and pay my respects to attending Detective Ernest Bonham, or Ernie as he was known to friends and family and his colleagues. Saw an interview on him in the early 2000s speaking about it. He was first responder and it still rattled him. He's investigated hundreds of crimes since. I don't know if Ernie's still with us. Probably not. It was over 70 years ago. But yeah, you could visibly see he paused a lot, his lip quivered. it still rattled him for what he would have seen. It would have been quite a horrific scene for a young detective. It's not a day, he says, that goes past that he doesn't think about it. So yeah, it's pretty sad. I guess we'll never know who decided to take the young life of Betty Shanks that night. But one thing we do know is it was a night that Brisbane lost its innocence.